Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back to our recurring monthly series where we take a look at what new upcoming games are on the horizon. This one for the month of January 2024, kicking off a brand new year. Gotta say though, typically January is a pretty slow time of year. It's a slow month, almost guaranteed historically. Now that said though, as always, there are a handful of pretty good looking games coming out this month that I think are worth keeping your eye on. So let's go ahead and jump right into this month's list. Kicking things off is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. This is an action-adventure game set in a mythological Persian world. It's being developed and published by Ubisoft, and as the name implies, marks the return of the Prince of Persia series after over nearly a decade hiatus. Although most people are likely most familiar with the Sands of Time, which launched in 2003, a few years after Ubisoft purchased the franchise. Prior to that, the first two games in the original trilogy were actually 2D side-scrollers. Well, with the upcoming The Lost Crown, it looks like Ubisoft has decided to go back to the series' roots while adding a bit of a modern twist, as this is going to be a 2.5D side-scrolling action-adventure Metroidvania game. So The Lost Crown introduces us to a new hero named Sargon, a young member of a warrior clan who must travel to a cursed city to rescue the prince himself. In the process, you'll be doing all of the platforming things. You can jump, slide, and air dash as you travel between areas while avoiding all sorts of different hazards and obstacles and using both attacks and time-bending abilities to manipulate the world, enemies, and environment. The game is also, as mentioned, a full-on Metroidvania, which means we've got an interconnected map and world full of shortcuts and secret rooms, many of which require you to solve puzzles, use an item, or locate a key to progress. The whole idea being you will often come across areas where you don't immediately have the tools, skills, or means to continue. You will then have to go back, exploring new areas or areas that you happen to miss in order to try to find whatever's required before returning and moving forward. One of the interesting features here is that the game will actually allow players to take screenshots and pin them to the map, letting you more easily see what obstacles were where, rather than having to remember every single roadblock you come across. Now, besides the platforming and the Metroidvania elements, one of the biggest standout features of this game from some of the early hands-on and preview impressions that have come out seems to be the game's combat. This is what people are most excited about. Watching SkillUp's preview in particular, he pretty much raved about it for a good chunk of the time, saying it's a very dynamic combat loop that clicked with me immediately. It actually reminded me a lot of Super Smash Bros. In the way that you weave between dodges, dashes, blocks, juggling enemies in the air, and timing the charged heavy attacks when you find an opening. From that and what I've heard elsewhere, it does seem like combat in this game is going to be quite tight with great controls, snappy inputs, and smooth animations, as well as visual effects and sound design that does a good job of making everything feel impactful. That, along with some camera shifts to emphasize special attacks and perfect parries. It's got some interesting layers to those mechanics as well, like this meter where you charge your abilities and this increases the damage you deal, but will then deplete whenever you receive damage. There are apparently a ton of different enemy types. SkillUp said in his 3-hour session he saw at least a dozen, which included dudes with shields that you need to dodge behind, to nimble assassins you have to lock down with sweeps or knockups. There's also big bosses. We've seen several of these in some of the early previews. These look to all have multiple phases and are said to be quite difficult, fairly challenging boss encounters. And yeah, I mean, just in general, it seems like combat is not only going to look and feel good, but is also said to be easy to learn and hard to master. They've even got a training area where you can practice combos, which you'll probably want to do as the game features diminishing returns if you spam the same combos repeatedly. On top of this, there are progression systems, like there are these amulets which will grant you passive boost to various offensive and defensive stats. You'll find time crystals, which will be then used to purchase upgrades, including beefing up your weapons, unlocking additional potions, increasing the amount of health you have, or even getting new amulet slots to get more of those amulet passive bonuses. I'll be perfectly honest, when I first heard about this game, I kind of wrote it off. They said Prince of Persia 2D side-scroller. I wasn't really that interested, to be perfectly honest. However, after looking into it and seeing some of the gameplay and hearing some of the impressions, what a pleasant surprise. This looks to be shaping up to be a really great looking game. I'm really excited to check it out. I think especially if you are a fan of action combat Metroidvania platformers, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is looking really good. The game will be launching on January 18th and is coming to PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Before moving on with this month's list, we got a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Warframe, one of the sponsors I am always happy to take, as this is a game that I've played on and off over the years, actually starting all the way back in 2013, if you can believe it. Like with many of the long-standing live service games or MMOs that I enjoy, I like to revisit the game to check out the latest updates every so often, and Warframe just got one such of those updates with Whispers in the Walls. This introduces the next major cinematic quest for the game, expanding on the deep secrets surrounding the mysterious Albrecht Enshrouded and the enigmatic entity known as the Man in the Wall. Besides adding new story stuff, Whispers in the Walls also introduces a brand new enemy type, the Murmur, a new void-powered weapon, the Grimoire, which has you shooting magic from a book, and the 55th Warframe known as Corvex, which is said to be this concrete-like frame designed to serve as a bulwark and new guardian for the Tenno. So basically, he's a big tanky boy. If you've not played Warframe before and are interested in checking out the game, you can register and play for free today on any platform. And to learn more about the Whispers in the Walls update, use my link in the video description below. All right, now moving on to the next game in this month's list, it is Fractured Veil, a multiplayer survival game set 100 years in the future on the lush islands of Hawaii. Here you'll try to survive an apocalyptic nightmare as you and your friends gather, build, quest, craft, raid, and defend what you have from the island's terrifying mutants, monsters, and worst of all, other players. Yes, other players is about the worst thing you could ever come across in one of these kind of games. Yeah, this looks to be yet another Steam Early Access multiplayer survival title. These games always seem to ride the line of looking super janky, yet still at the same time appealing to fans of the genre, likely because the survival genre has always been full of janky looking games. Even the most successful of the lot tend to look pretty rough. It's hard for me to judge in the early stages where this will fall on the side of good jank or bad jank. We'll have to wait until release to know for sure. But anyways, some of the noteworthy features of Fractured Veil include a fully open world based on real topographical data from Maui. This was actually used to construct the game's 64 square kilometer map, which they then filled with procedural building, road, and river systems to create a real-world inspired but unique environment. There's dynamic weather and day-night cycles that will create unpredictable hazards, and then beyond environmental dangers, you'll have to take care for the island's mutants, monsters, and yes, other players that are surely there to ruin your day. And the game's got this thing where there are AI drones that patrol the map and stream live to Twitch TV 24/7, focusing on all of the game's PvPvE activities. I guess you can tune into these drone streams for a unique view of the game in real time. What is this? Anyways, other features include, of course, harvestable resources to craft shelter, food, equipment, and weapons. There's in-depth base building and tiered skill-based crafting system. There will be both PvP and PvE activities and quests. Countless dungeons, apparently, ranging from small to Diablo-inspired spaces. I don't know what Diablo-inspired spaces mean in terms of size, but whatever. They've got an RPG-inspired player progression system with talents, abilities, and skills, and large-scale NPC intelligence. What does that mean? Some of these descriptions I don't quite understand. Will this be another throwaway survival game, or will it be the next big hit? Who knows? We will find out when Fractured Veil launches into Steam Early Access on January 18th. Enshrouded is an open-world survival action RPG that looks to take the best elements of both survival and RPG genres and combine them into a voxel-based world, giving players quite a bit of freedom in both how they explore and build. The game is set in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world where a deadly fog has enshrouded everything, but this isn't purely cosmetic, as the fog plays a pivotal role into the gameplay and exploration experience. You, the player, have been brought back to life by a force called the Flame, tasked with dispelling the fog and rebuilding the world. So last year, I went hands-on in a couple of events, getting to play Enshrouded for a rather big chunk of time, and I came away pretty impressed. This game is definitely my most anticipated release in January. So on one hand, yes, there is the survival elements. You will go around gathering resources, which you'll use to craft items, food, tools, and build a base. All of that stuff is here. Pretty much everything that you expect, every expected feature in the survival genre is present and seemed to be done well enough when I got to play the game. There's some things I think they could polish up and fine tune, but overall it was a pretty sufficient survival game in terms of those features. But what I am most excited about is the fact that a lot more of the focus in Enshrouded is on this adventure RPG systems with a world, mechanics, and systems and features that really emphasize exploration, the combat, and character progression. While most survival games opt for procedural world generation, Enshrouded is entirely handcrafted. All of the terrain, points of interest, items, puzzles, boss locations, everything about the game is the same for everyone who plays it. Playing last year, even with the restrictions that were in place for the version of the game we tried, there was still a lot to see and do. Tons of points of interest and places to explore. There were ancient ruins, dungeons and castles, caves and underground caverns, all sorts of makeshift camps and compounds full of enemies. We saw massive towers that had jumping puzzles, abandoned buildings in town, there were farms and salt mines, just a lot of variety in what was a relatively refined play space. So I'm super excited to see the rest of the game. But probably the biggest standout feature that fuels the game's sense of exploration is the fact that about half of the whole play space is enshrouded. Basically, the game is divided into two major sections. The highland areas where you're able to freely roam without restriction, but then also just as many lowland valleys and ravines that are all encompassed in a thick fog. This fog comes with a timer that you can refresh through a few different means, but in general, it's meant to sort of create a push and pull of you preparing, going out, exploring the fog, and then returning before you effectively run out of breath. So the core objective throughout the game is for you to find and destroy the various sources of this fog, which are actually these giant flower-looking things called shroud roots, which are typically hidden underground or in some location protected by groups of enemies and occasionally even protected by a boss. Between all the various location types, the mixing of elevation and terrain, the traversal options, which include climbing, double jumps, a grappling hook, and gliding, and the enshrouded mechanic in all of the lowland areas, I just found exploration in this game to be really enjoyable. I think they have a super nice foundation of systems and features that make for a very satisfying adventure RPG feel on top of all of those survival systems that are in the game as well. In terms of combat, it's got a fairly basic, almost rudimentary action combat system. There are a variety of weapons like swords, axes, shields, bows, wands, and staffs, but each of those only come with a single attack chain combo. This is somewhere that I do hope they add depth from what we played last year. They've got progression systems. These include getting gear, weapons, and various items to fill your helm, chest, gloves, pants, feet, and ring slots. There's also a rarity system, with gold being the highest tier of items. There's a skill tree, so as you play and progress, you'll unlock points which you can spend in a tree. These will grant new abilities like the ability to sneak attack, to do a blink, or even execute stunned enemies. And then there are also ones that give you powerful passive bonuses like flat % damage increase for melee ranged and spells, reducing the resource cost for abilities, or even things like pacifying nearby wildlife. Other features of the game include there is a main story narrative quest line. This takes you through the various points of interest, unlocking new systems and features. As mentioned, there is all the crafting survival stuff. You have field crafting, workbenches, blacksmithing, alchemy, and more to go along with that. There's the harvesting mechanics, and the game features multiplayer with servers supporting up to 16 players. Now, as I said, and as you could probably tell by me droning on about this game, Enshrouded is easily my most anticipated release of this month. I did have some feedback and points of improvement suggestions from playing the build from last year, but generally, overall, I really enjoyed the game. I had a super good time, and I'm really looking forward to its upcoming release. Enshrouded is scheduled to enter Steam Early Access on January 24th. The Quinfall is a new MMORPG developed by Varek Technology Inc., a studio that was founded in January 2021 who, quote, aims to bring innovation to the video game industry with advanced technologies and AI systems. Okay. In the Quinfall, they say that you'll embark on an adventurous journey exploring the world, taking part in unique battles, and experiencing an immersive story with dozens of different professions in the depths of medieval times. As for the game's systems and features, they claim to have built the world's largest MMO map with an area of 2,016 square kilometers. That is a lot. To put in perspective, the last time I checked, World of Warcraft, with all of its expansions, has a playable surface area of about 207 square kilometers. So Quinfall with 2,016 is nearly 10 times the size of all of WoW. How much of that is going to be barren landscape? Who could tell? I could make a fair guess, but anyways, they say this map consists of 5 regions with their own climates, changing weather, and a day-night cycle. It's got a population of plants and animals that will fluctuate. Floods and droughts can happen. Cities will be spread all across the world and found on cliffs, shores, mountains, and even underground. You'll be able to visit player shops and taverns that were built by players, play board games or mini games with others, and even make your own music. You can build your own home and decorate it as you please. They've got a sea, which is apparently as big as the open world. You will build ships and sail to new islands, fighting giant enemies and the elements such as wind and huge waves. You'll also encounter other players and pirates. Combat is said to be action-based with a light and heavy attack, dodge, block, and other abilities. We've seen various weapon types like sword, shields, bows, daggers, staffs, two-handed swords, and great axes. There are apparently going to be plenty of PvE activities, from basic enemies to huge bosses like sandworms, krakens, dragons, floating metal monsters, and more. There's also open PvP with various types of medieval combat like ship battles, island skirmishes, and castle sieges. And one of the final bullet points on their Steam page says that they've really focused on optimization and performance, and we can expect smooth gameplay even in high player counts and crowded environments. Now I gotta say, I had quite a few people ask me why the Quinfall wasn't featured on my list of every upcoming MMO coming in 2024. To be perfectly honest, it completely fell under my radar. I actually had no clue that this game was launching so soon, and looking at the gameplay footage in their most recent trailer from a few months back, I'm left a little skeptical, to be perfectly honest, as to how good this game is going to be. And not helping matters is the developer's mission statement on their website, which says they are going to present the biggest MMORPG universe in the world to the global audience with their new game Quinfall, and then in upcoming years, they aim to adapt real life to the digital world by creating a sandbox MMO world on a scale never seen before. What is that even trying to say? Now, that statement, combined with their stated focus of AI tech and the fact that the studio was founded only 3 years ago, leaves me a little dubious to their claim that Quinfall will be the biggest MMO universe in the world, unless they're just talking about sheer map size, which, yes, I mean, 2,000 square kilometers, that is a large map. How good is this game going to be in terms of its MMO systems, features, its depth, the level of detail, the combat? I don't know. I know at the very least they've built a big play space. We'll see if that is any good. And hey, you know what? You never know. I am hoping for the best. Maybe this turns out to be the greatest MMO of all time. And being the sucker I am for the genre, I will most certainly at the very least check it out when it releases. The Quinfall enters Steam Early Access on January 30th. Fingers crossed that it's more than just a big world. They've got that done. Great. Okay. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have a game that was just like Pokemon, but with guns? Well, let me introduce you to Palworld, a multiplayer open world survival crafting game where you'll fight, farm, build, and work alongside mysterious creatures called pals. Palworld's list of features include survival. You'll search harsh environments, scavenging for food and other resources while fending off dangerous poachers and creatures. Mounts and exploration. Pals can be mounted to traverse the land, sea, and sky as you explore the world. You'll build structures, all sorts of bases, which are constructed by putting your army of pals to work. In the official description on the Steam page, it says, don't worry, there are no labor laws for pals. There's production and farming. You'll use your pals to make fire, generate electricity, mine ore, plant seeds, and water crops. You can even build a factory, place your pal in it, and they will keep working as long as they are fed or until they die. What? It's pretty morbid here, how we're treating these pals. There's dungeon exploration. You'll explore points of interest in dungeons with your pals by your side, helping you tackle even the most dangerous areas. And if things get too scary, they're willing to sacrifice themselves for your pals are just like super disposable, and they're making no qualms about it. The game will feature breeding and genetics, which is pretty common in like Pokemon-like games. You can combine pals to get the characteristics that you want, and there will be co-op multiplayer where you can invite a friend to go and venture together. You can battle your friends, pals, even trade your pals. And they said that PvP will be implemented into the game in a future update. You know what? Palworld looks pretty interesting, as strange as some of the descriptions are. This doesn't actually seem all that bad. I'm curious to see how it shapes up. The game is set to enter Steam Early Access at some point in January. As of this recording, no exact date has been revealed. I also want to mention that Palworld is scheduled to launch on Xbox consoles, although that apparently will be happening at a later date. All right, so that does it for my main list of games releasing in January. Now on to the honorable mentions. New Cycle is a civilization building game where you're tasked with pulling your people out of chaos of an apocalyptic solar flare. You must grow your house from a lone shelter to an industrial metropolis, take on the burden of preserving life, and help your people realize their aim of a future beyond mere survival. You'll manage a vast web of resources by foraging, mining, and trading. You'll have to face off against an uncaring world. This eroded atmosphere of the new world presents an extremely fickle seasonal cycle, as well as various destructive events. You'll sculpt your settlement from the footpaths up to the factories, dividing your settlement into grids or building freely to create a majestic city of your personal vision. And finally, a big goal here is to lead your people, supporting, managing morale, efficiency, and workforce size while ensuring that they don't fall into discontent. New Cycle launches on January 18th for PC via Steam. Stargate Timekeepers is a real-time tactics game where you lead a team of specialists through a story-driven campaign set in the SG-1 universe, sneaking your characters behind enemy lines, using their unique skills, and crafting the perfect plan to unravel a time loop mystery and defeat the world's biggest threat. The game departs from the end of Season 7 of the Stargate SG-1 main plot to create an original story unfolding over 14 narrative-rich missions. You'll lead a team of specialists operating behind enemy lines, using your character's unique skills to come up with perfectly synchronized plans to overcome warriors, generals, officers, and many new and original enemies. There'll be 6 playable characters, each with their own unique abilities. You'll have to play smart and combine these abilities to silently eliminate your enemies in quick succession. They've even got this tactical mode that allows you to synchronize your actions perfectly. Stargate Timekeepers will be launching on January 23rd, coming to PC. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is the 9th mainline entry of the Like a Dragon series and the direct sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon from 2020. Similar to Yakuza, the game employs a turn-based combat system for all playable characters. Each character can choose from a multitude of jobs, which act as classes that grant them distinctive perks and playstyles. In addition to returning mini-games like karaoke and darts, there are new mini-games such as Crazy Delivery, a food delivery game inspired by Crazy Taxi, Sujamon Battle, which is a Pokemon parody game, and Mismatch, which is a dating app. Another major side activity is called the Happy Resort Dondoko Island that tasks you with managing your own resort, where you'll gather resources, craft, and engage in social interactions. I've heard a lot of good things about the Like a Dragon series, although I've never personally checked them out. I know friends and acquaintances that really gush highly about just Yakuza, Like a Dragon, the Like a Dragon games in general. So this seems pretty interesting if you like this kind of a game. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth will be launching on January 25th for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Unforetold Witchstone is an RPG sandbox game with a deep reactive influence system that allows you to shape the fate of the world. Each choice you make will feed into a non-linear narrative system that changes relationships and outcomes dramatically, they say. Who you choose to help, what you do, and what you aim to achieve are all up to you. The gameplay will feature classic turn-based combat as well as stealth systems. Between battling groups of enemies, you will set out to recruit others who align with your goals, and unlike most RPGs, they say there's no limitation to who you can recruit. There's a comprehensive customization system with deep character creation inspired by tabletop RPGs, letting you customize your appearance but also your abilities and backstory. Unforetold Witchstone enters Steam Early Access on January 15th. And lastly, we have got Tekken 8, the latest installment in the renowned long-running fighting game franchise. It will feature 32 fighters with completely redesigned character visuals, highly detailed models built from the ground up. Their vivid environments and destructible stages combine to create a new sense of immersion. A new battle system, Heat, is said to dial up the aggressive nature of fights while maintaining the playfeel and tactics unique to the Tekken series, and it's got a single-player mode, Arcade Quest, that lets you craft your own unique avatar and embark on your own Tekken life as you battle your way through a variety of rivals across multiple arcades. Tekken 8 releases on January 28th, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. And with that, that pretty much does it for this month's list. As I said, it's a pretty slow time of year traditionally, and that bears out in this month. However, some pretty good looking games. My personal top picks for January are definitely going to be Enshrouded and the Prince of Persia. Really looking forward to both of those. Also, I would love for the Quinfall to be good, but I'm keeping my expectations pretty darn low from the gameplay we've seen. But it's an MMO, so I gotta play it. And then also, yeah, I'm curious about Fractured Veil, as I do enjoy survival games. And Palworld, who knows? Sacrifice our pals. They all suck apparently. Just, it's like a Pokemon-like, but they added guns to it. What do you expect, right? So yeah, bit of a slower month, but that is totally okay. I'll also add that I am still playing WoW Season of Discovery, and Once Human has been keeping my attention for quite some time. Both of these are going to keep me busy for the next couple of weeks, in addition to new games coming out. That does it, though. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, as always, you found something on this list that you're interested in. And yeah, I'll see you guys next month or in the next video. Yeah, don't just watch the monthly videos. Check out the other videos, too. I do other videos besides these ones. I know a lot of you just like this list, but check out some of the other videos. They're decent. They're not bad. All right, thanks, guys, so much. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Take it easy.